My name is Iris West, and I want to introduce you to a very special man in my life. Before I get started, I want all of you to think about, what is a hero? Are there any heroes in your family? Keep that thought in mind. Before I get started, I just want you to know that I was only 5 years old when my grandfather died, so there's not a whole lot that I can tell from personal experience. Most everything that I learned about my grandfather was when someone told me stories about Grandpa. In addition to being very young and not being able to have any serious conversations with my grandfather, my family lived in Ohio, and my grandfather was still living in Georgia, so our visits were not frequent. All right? Lewis Howard Cox was my maternal grandfather, and he was born approximately 7 years before the Emancipation Proclamation. I can't even imagine how difficult life was for him. There's nothing in my background that, I can even refer to or think about that could even prepare me for hearing the stories that I heard about my grandfather and his struggles. Relatives filled me in. They told me what they thought I was prepared to accept. But again, things were pretty difficult before, during, and after slavery as well. My mother remembers a time when my grandfather had mentioned to her that starvation was almost a daily occurrence. In addition to living in abject poverty, the whole business of starvation, looking for food on a daily basis. One of the things that really struck me and stays with me is a time when my grandfather, probably more than once, my grandfather would follow behind horses that were in the community, hoping that he would be able to sift through their droppings and find undigested matters of food. Again, I can't imagine, and to some extent, I don't want to imagine the suffering of my grandfather and others who were out of slavery on one level, but still having to deal with an awful lot. Emancipation, of course, was a first step on the road to freedom for my grandfather and many other ex-slaves. However, they had to struggle with their basic needs. Ex-slave owners didn't feel responsible for providing resources or anything so that their ex-slaves could start a new life, purchase a home, anything that we just automatically think of when we're thinking about an independent lifestyle. Thankfully, as years went on, my grandfather was able to marry. He and my grandmother, Ada, moved to the Atlanta area where they raised 6 children. My grandfather was gainfully employed at the Atlanta Paper Company, and in 1939 he did retire from that paper company and received a gold watch, which was something that was typically done for retirees in the 30s and 40s probably. Church was a mainstay not only for my grandfather but for the entire family. Grandpa was a deacon in the church for many, many years. One of my aunts played the piano in church once she became a young adult, and she continued to play for her church for many, many years. The church where my grandfather joined was one of the historic black churches where at least a couple of the historic black colleges got their beginnings. In addition to church, my grandfather just did whatever he could to serve his family, to serve his community, and to overcome. This is something that really sticks with me, the perseverance, the overcoming, all that it took for my grandfather, who was born into slavery, to overcome, to build a life with his family, and for them to grow and thrive. Thank you very much for allowing me to introduce you to my grandfather, Lewis Howard Cox, my family hero.